Welcome gaming friends, today we're going to be taking a look at Guild Wars 2. We're going to take a look at why you should try the game even almost 8 years after the core game has launched. ArenaNet has recently announced that a third expansion is currently in production. The core game for Guild Wars 2 is currently free to play, and currently with the expansion of Path of Fire, the game's most recent expansion, you will receive Heart of Thorns, the first expansion, for free. Most of the restrictions currently on the free-to-play account are related to the player mailing and trading post systems. However, for any of those that are interested in those restrictions, I will add a link below. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what makes Guild Wars 2 one of my favorite MMOs of all time. First, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the things you're going to be using most in-game, the combat system. The fluidity of the Guild Wars 2 combat system by far is one of my favorite combat systems in any MMO I've played all time. So let's go ahead and break down the system. The first 5 skills on the bar are going to depend on the character's class as well as the weapons that are equipped. If a character is wielding a one-handed weapon, the first 3 skills will be designated by that main hand weapon. The final 2 skills will be designated by the offhand weapon. Above the weapon skills, you will notice the profession skills. Profession skills are going to be determined by both the character's profession as well as their elite specialization. Above the profession skills, you will notice a special action key, which will only appear during special instances or when you're holding specific in-game items. The 2 yellow bars above the health indicator are the character's endurance, which will allow the character to dodge 1 time for each bar that is completely filled. While the character is dodging, it is invulnerable to damage for 0.75 seconds. By default, all characters have 2 endurance bars, however, a certain elite specialization may increase or decrease the amount of endurance bars available to that profession. Once a character has used a charge of their endurance, the bar will begin to gradually recharge their endurance until it reaches 100%. The skills to the right of the character's health bar are the character's healing, utility, and elite skills. These skills will differ depending on the character's class as well as their elite specialization. Now let's go ahead and talk about some combat skill functionalities. Unlike other games, there are no target requirements for most skills in the game. This comes in handy in scenarios where you're trying to use skills to cleave invisible enemies, increase your mobility, or buff allies. It is also important to note that there are target caps for all skills in the game. You'll have to look at individual skill tooltips to see what the target cap is. However, most skills will cap at 5 targets each. This applies to both buffs, also known as boons, and damage skills. It is also worth noting that damage skills will distribute their damage across all targets within an AoE. For example, if you have a skill that causes 10,000 damage and there's only a single target within that AoE, that single target will receive all 10,000 damage. However, if there were 5 targets within that same AoE skill, all 5 targets would receive 2,000 damage each. So staying closer to allies in competitive game modes will increase player sustainability. Some skills will create combo fields. These fields will allow projectiles that pass through them to gain special abilities. Like, projectiles going through a fire field will gain burning abilities. Similarly, if a skill that has a blast finisher is used in a fire field, characters within that fire field will gain the boon Might. Boons are Guild Wars 2 version of buffs, and can be gained by using skill abilities as well as using blast finishers and combos. Some boons, like swiftness, only stack in duration, while other boons can be stacked in intensity. Like the Might example, can be stacked up to 25 times on a single player. Might is a buff that will increase both the player's power and condition damage, which are the 2 types of damage in Guild Wars 2. Power damage will allow a character to deal large amounts of damage in a small amount of time, whereas condition damage will allow the player to ramp up damage over time and build their stacks of conditions. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about a mechanic that exists when a player's hit points are depleted. This mechanic is known as Downstate. The player will start with a Downstate health pool, which will be decaying over time, unless the player is able to bandage themselves back to health, or allies are able to revive them. The player is also able to rally off of enemy players that have been defeated in the area. However, if the player is not able to successfully complete one of those actions before their health has been depleted, then the character will reach the defeated stage and will need to respawn from a waypoint. Alternatively, they can also be revived by a player in the area that is out of combat. Now that we've discussed the combat system, let's go ahead and discuss the playable character races and classes. It is important to note, regardless of your race choice, you will be able to play all of the classes on each character and have an equal playing field. The choice you make in regards to your character will only affect your early game story as well as character cosmetics. The Sylvarir, these curious plant beings are connected to the dream. Their experiences in the world are gathered up like dew on the branches of their mother, the pale tree. The humans, a resilient group of people, diverse, reminded of their past glories long before the 6 gods fell silent. It is their time to rise up and create a new future to stand equal with the rest of the world. The Char, a strict military society that subscribe to the philosophy victory at all costs. However, relying on ancient enemies comes with a high price. The Norn, hunters of the north that live for the hunt and have a strong connection with the wild spirits. The Asura, small statue beings that are first and foremost experts on magitech and their arcane inventions, making them powerful allies. Now that we've reviewed the playable races, let's discuss available professions to play. It is important to note that regardless of a character's armor weight or class, they are able to fulfill a variety of roles. For example, a Mesmer, which is a light class character, is one of the best tanks in the game if it's using its elite specialization, the Necromancer. And a Guardian, which is a heavy class armor character, is able to provide buffs and healing for their allies. Here I'm just briefly going to touch on each of the base professions, since going into all of the classes and their elite specializations in detail would require a video of in itself. The Heavy Armor. Guardians are devout fighters to protect their allies and smite their enemies, using light magic and melee attacks. Warriors are masters of weaponry. They rely on strength, speed, toughness, and heavy armor to survive in battle. The Revenant. Equipped with otherworldly powers, they are able to channel heroes of the past to support their allies in battle. The Medium Classes. Engineers, masters of mechanical mayhem, explosives, elixirs, and gadgets. They have a wide array of inventions to keep their enemies at bay. The Thieves are experts in stealth and surprise attacks, moving through the shadows and stealing items from their opponents to use them as weapons. The Ranger, masters of range attack and the power of nature itself. They have an arsenal of loyal pets at their command and are master survivalists with expertise in using traps. The Light Classes. Mesmer, powerful illusionists that use clones of phantasmal magic to keep their enemies confused.
Necromancer, practitioners of the dark arts, summoner of minions, wielder of power rituals, and heal themselves with blood magic.
Elementalists, spellcasters who channel forces of fire, air, magic, and earth to inflict massive damage on their enemies. Now that you have a background on characters and combat in Guild Wars 2, let's go ahead and talk about progression. The first part of progressing in Guild Wars 2 is going to be making it to level cap, which is level 80. Pretty much anything that you do in the game will allow your character to progress in level. Some examples are completing hearts and quests, collecting resources, exploring the map, killing mobs, and leveling your crafting skill. Once you've gotten your character to level 80, the next part of your account progression will begin. I will also note that there are hero points which you will encounter on the map as you are going. But as long as you complete those hero points as you find them along the way, maxing out your profession traits shouldn't be a problem. Once you hit level 80 and purchase at least one of the expansions, you will then be able to start working on your account-wide masteries. Leveling up your account-wide masteries has two steps. The first step is to accumulate experience like you would if you were leveling your character to train one of your masteries. Next, you will need to complete mastery points. Core-Tyria mastery points, the red mastery icons, will be completed by gaining experience on Core-Tyria maps, as well as completing mastery challenges in Core-Tyria. Some masteries will be unlocked by visiting places on the map, while others will be unlocked through collections and achievements in the story journal. The green masteries will be completed in the Maguma jungle, the purple masteries from Path of Fire, and the blue masteries are from the Ice Brood Saga, the current DLC. The mastery that I think had the greatest quality of life improvement from Core-Tyria masteries is auto-looting, which means when you kill a mob you will no longer have to pick up the loot from the mobs you killed. The most impactful mastery from Heart of Thorns is the gliding mastery. This mastery gives you the ability to glide from high places, and will also save your life if you don't look before you leap. Path of Fire added mounts to the game. It's important to note that each mount shines in their own way and specializes in their own unique way of moving around the map. If you max out the masteries from these mounts, there are also some abilities that they will share with the rest of the mount lineup. The Raptor, capable of long horizontal leaps, this mount makes getting over dry land a breeze. This is also the first mount you'll receive in Path of Fire, although it is the easiest mount to receive. This mount will get you through a majority of the content Guild Wars 2 has to offer. The Springer, capable of high vertical leaps, this mount makes short work of getting over any obstacles. Obtaining additional masteries for the Springer will give it the ability to cushion your fall while mounted dramatically. Further training the mastery for this mount will double the height that it can jump. The Skimmer. This hovering mount specializes in quickly transporting you over water and hazardous ground terrain like quicksand and acid, giving you swiftness over these types of terrain, but you will be slowed once you are over dry land. The Jackal. This mount is capable of teleporting short distances and uses sand portals to help you traverse maps. It also dodges hostile attacks by using special abilities. The Griffin. This mount functions very much like a glider, except a lot faster. This mount gives you the ability to dive, further increasing your glide to speed ratio. Furthering the masters with the Griffin allows you to mount mid-air. This ability was not previously possible. The Rollerbeetle. This mount is the fastest mount in the game, given you're not crashing into anything or go over any large bodies of water. Driving and drifting around really feels like pod racing. The Skyscale. The most time-consuming mount to obtain, the highest milestone to reach of mounts, is the Skyscale. This mount gives you both horizontal and vertical capabilities, and hovering above ground indefinitely is possible given you have the stamina. However, you will need to rest to gain further altitude. The capabilities of this mount are the most sought out of all the mounts in Guild Wars 2. The Warclaw. This mount is obtained and played majorly in World vs. World because it is outshined by the Raptor in open world content. We'll discuss this more later in the video. Guild Wars 2 has no monthly subscription fee. Once you purchase Path of Fire, the current episode and all additional Icebrood Saga episodes, DLC content, will be free as long as you log in before the next episode. Any episodes that you have missed will be purchasable in the Gem Store. In the Gem Store, you will notice you are able to exchange gold, the in-game currency, for gems, which is the cash shop currency. You are able to purchase gems with real money, though you don't have to. As you look through the Gem Store, you will notice there are no pay-to-win items. All of the items in the Gem Store are there to serve as a convenience or aesthetic functionality only. There is no required gear grind in Guild Wars 2. You will naturally obtain endgame gear or at least the components to acquire Ascended and Legendary gear simply by playing the game. Exotic gear is fine in most game modes and easily obtainable, and will get you through a majority of the content in Guild Wars 2, including World vs. World. Ascended gear is only required for high-level fractals due to its ability to slot Agony Resistance in the gear's infusion slots. Agony Resistance is a special resistance stat specific to a type of damage called Agony, only found in fractals. Legendary gear in Guild Wars 2 will require a concise effort to complete. While the stats for Legendary gear are no better than their Ascended counterparts, they do have an added benefit. Legendary gear is able to swap stats anytime you are out of combat, and also has access to any stat combination that is available in the game. Legendary gear also allows for equipment upgrades to be swapped out freely without the need for extractors or replacement upgrades. There are different sets of legendary gear from PvP, World vs. World, and PvE raids. Regardless of the game mode that you build your legendary armor from, you will need Grandmaster level crafting for the armor type you are going for. For more information about crafting legendary armor, you can check out my other legendary guide videos on my channel. Another reason why Guild Wars 2 is such a great game is aside of a few rotten apples in the PvP community, the Guild Wars 2 community is by far one of the friendliest and most helpful communities I have ever been a part of. There is such a wide range of guilds and communities within Guild Wars 2. I suggest that you find one that shares your interest and join it. Some examples of content-focused guilds may include World vs. World, PvP, farming, role-playing, raiding, and gold making. World vs. World is a big game of who can control the most objectives for the longest amount of time. There are 3 servers at each tier. They compete to capture and hold the most bases and camps to gain the highest amount of points during that week. Roamers are either single players or small groups of players who focus on scouting, skirmishing with smaller enemy forces, and picking off enemy reinforcements. Zergs are large groups of players of 25 or more who focus on taking enemy objectives. These groups are led by a commander who in most cases will utilize voice communication like Discord or TeamSpeak to coordinate movements and issue orders to their squads. World vs. World has deployable siege blueprints. They can function either offensively or defensively. Certain base objectives will also have defensive siege depending on their fortification upgrades. Some World vs. World Masteries have similar functionalities to their open world counterparts, although have been slightly changed in order to better fit the game mode. Some shared masteries include auto loot, mounts. The Warclaw is the only World vs. World mount, which will allow for increased movement speed while mounted, has a leap attack for damaging foes with increased damage to downed foes, and enables you to siege gates with its chains. Gliding is only allowed in World vs. World in territories that you own. Guild Wars 2 has countless guilds that are dedicated to World vs. World alone. The size of these guilds will vary, as well as the amount of activity that is required. The activity requirements for some of these guilds can range from casual participation to daily participation. Guilds can also vary on the preferred styles of combat and focus. For example, some guilds may focus only on fighting, while others may prioritize capturing and defending objectives to maintain their server's points per tick. Community-driven content consists of guild versus guild and duels in world versus world. GVG formats generally include 15v15 or 20v20 between single guilds and are generally organized by the participating guild leaders. Duels are generally 1v1s and take place between players near South Camp on Alpine Borderlands. World vs. World etiquette is not to interrupt GVGs or duels in this area. World vs. World also has legendary gear that is only able to be acquired from that game mode. Some of that exclusive gear currently consists of legendary armor for each armor set, a legendary ring, and a legendary backpack. Guild Wars 2 PvP is available at character level 2. Once you arrive in the PvP lobby, you'll be treated as a max level character with all of your traits unlocked from each expansion that you own. If you're on a free-to-play account, however, you will only have access to the base game professions. 5v5 Conquest is the most popular game mode in Guild Wars 2 PvP. It is the format that they use for 5v5 ranked season, as well as the automated tournaments. Between the 5v5 ranked seasons, you will also see 2v2 or 3v3 deathmatch mini-seasons. Guild Wars 2 currently has legendary gear that is exclusive to PvP. That gear includes legendary armor, an amulet, and a PvP backpack. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Hope you all have a great one, and I'll catch you next time.